For companies that are doing a single vendor solution approach, is it always falling under one team, or do
Hmm.
you have multiple teams depending on which solution they're architecting, and
Yeah.
how does that work?
Well, and I mentioned earlier, I think, did we talk about Adobe Experience Manager? Not
Yeah, briefly.
necessarily integrating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think you'd see that on the client side as well, that the folks who know Adobe Experience Manager and who would be in it a whole lot have nothing to do with the folks who are working with Adobe Analytics. So they can be very different.
Well, how does that play out? Let's just talk about like deploying the solutions from an architecture standpoint. Have you seen that like defeat the value of a tag management solution or a data layer where instead of having it as this combined strategy, that it's this kind of conglomerate of, well, we own this little piece of it because it's analytics, another
Mhm.
team owns the optimization stuff, another
Yep.
team owns the experience stuff, and none of those things are talking together. It's like,
Yep.
but that's why we're doing a tag manager, so we do it
Right.
once instead of
Right.
three times.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. We see that, and I think a lot of the time it comes down to who's making the decisions. They're often much higher up. So they might be over both of those teams that are siloed. And they will say, oh yeah, we've got those folks doing optimization and these folks doing analytics. And yeah, it makes sense for us to go all in on this stack. Because from their perspective, where they umbrella everything, yeah, maybe that does make sense, but they're not in the weeds, nor are they doing anything to break down the silos that exist underneath them. Maybe they think going all to the same stack will magically make those silos go away, you know? Oh,
Does it make sense in organizations of that size where that plays out, where you have these separate teams, even if they do roll up to the same leadership, to have a at least a point architect that's responsible for the architecture of the whole? And have you seen that be the case where you have an architect that sits across multiple teams?
yes, it makes sense. No, I have not seen it. Certainly not as much as I would like to, but and this could be a whole other podcast talking about data silos and all of that. That there often isn't a
Jim
single
takes
point
notes.
that yeah that there often isn't a single person who has a view into all of the different data points. And that used to be problematic for the reasons we've been talking about. It's going to become even more problematic as everything moves into either BigQuery or Adobe Experience Platform or Snowflake, or all the data is getting merged. And suddenly analytics, which wasn't considered part of the what the data team was doing, is going to be part of what the data team is doing. Yeah, those silos are gonna have to come down here fairly soon either way.
So do you see that when you say data team, are you referring kind of to the more traditional like data engineering, business intelligence
Yeah,
teams are now merging with kind of the marketing analytics teams or product analytics teams, and like who's gonna
yeah,
figure that all
exactly.
out?
Not that I'm seeing that merging happening,
Yeah.
but I'm seeing the need for it. Um, and folks who have had great success with customer journey analytics, it's because they were able to bring those teams together.
So speaking of a solution like customer journey analytics, um, is it easier? Are there more risks if you are all on the Adobe platform, or is the promise of that is that you don't necessarily need to go a single vendor approach? I'm not close enough to it to know, but are there different
Mm.
ways you would think about as an architect to avoid kind of risks, again, single vendor versus not, with like a more complex solution like
Yeah.
customer journey analytics?
I do think, if nothing else, there'd be an advantage in documentation that, if you have Adobe Analytics and you're trying to get it into CJA, that has been done, and it's not too hard to find track someone. Jim Gordon will help tell you how to do it, or Frederick Werner. W- but that said, I think. Hmm. I don't know. It's still complicated. There's still so many things that you have to map and all of that, that I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a lot easier. It's just going to be a path that's been better forged before, than bringing in, say, if you wanted to bring your Google Analytics data into CJA, which we've seen done. That's possible to do. Um, Yeah, I don't know that Adobe Analytics in CJA is gonna be way infinitely better than Google Analytics in CJA. I'd hope so.